Hi, and thanks for choosing to watch this video. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, leave your comments, and share the love. Thanks for watching Bayloric TV Boxing Channel. Now, the matter at hand. Anthony Joshua versus Charles Martin. Well, this is what people are talking about. And when I haven't really been around much boxing recently, but I kind of heard the whispers and the grapevine. I think it's foolish talk. I think it's absolutely foolish talk. People are saying, oh, it's only Charles Martin. Nobody knows who Charles Martin is. But to be honest, Anthony Joshua, his last fight was his first real genuine fight against a guy that brought opposition. How do you do when you face your first real live opponent? How do you do when you have to face somebody who's going to hit your back? What are you going to do in a fight with a guy that's going to back you up? What do you do that? How do you react when you get hit on the chin? How do you react when you get hit to the body? How do you react when you land your best punch and that guy still keeps coming forward at you? Well, that happened when Anthony Joshua met Dillian Whyte. Now, Dillian Whyte is an unknown quantity. And he is known as the guy that went many rounds with Anthony Joshua, extended Anthony Joshua. He also is known as the guy that almost knocked Anthony Joshua out in the second round. Now, there in itself should be a warning sign to boxing fans, because nobody knows how good Dillian Whyte is, unless you're trying to tell me that Dillian Whyte is potentially the best heavyweight in the world, with a guy who wasn't in completely great condition and a guy who was injured coming into the fight. And if you remember, boxing fans and those who've been following me loyally, I did state this fight was coming too soon for Dillian Whyte. He'd be going into the fight with an injury, as far as I was concerned, and he wasn't ready for the big fight. And he needed a couple more fights before a big fight. A lot of fans were like, "Yo, no, make the fight happen. It's silly. Make Dillian Whyte fight Anthony Joshua." That was just to please the lust that they had. And now you've seen the result. Just ask yourself the question: had Dillian Whyte been in shape and Dillian Whyte not been injured in that second round, we probably wouldn't be talking about Anthony Joshua versus Charles Martin. And that is my basis of my thoughts about Anthony Joshua. Yes, he got rocked against a virtually unknown fighter. He's not on British shores, but how good is Dillian Whyte? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. How good is Dillian Whyte? Could he beat the top 5 heavyweights in the world? And, could he? I'm not saying he can't, but in that condition he was in that night, could he beat the top 5 heavyweights in the world? And this is the question you've got to ask yourself. If you're talking about Anthony Joshua being this, as a lot of people saying, the second coming of Ali, or the next, or the heir to the Klitschko's. But he can't be the heir to the Klitschko's now, because Tyson Fury is the man. So, I don't quite understand the logic. Now, you're going to put now, after Joshua got rocked and quite badly hurt by Dillian Whyte in that second round, who we still don't know how big a puncher Dillian Whyte is, because his biggest fight was against Anthony Joshua. So we don't know how big a puncher Dillian Whyte is. He's a fair puncher, we know that. But he's never fought anybody in the top 10 outside of Joshua. So this is my point. We don't know how either good any of them are. Right? It was the first time that, Dillian Whyte was getting really hit back by an opponent. Right? And it was the first time Joshua was getting hit back by an opponent. So we really don't know. We have to see how their career moves on further after this fight. So you're going to fight Charles Martin. He's unbeaten. So people say, who's Charles Martin? I've never heard of him. But listen, Charles Martin is 6'5", 6'6". He's a southpaw. He's unbeaten, and he can punch. Now, if I'm right in saying I haven't seen Anthony Joshua fight a live opponent that's a southpaw, that can punch, that's unbeaten. So you're going to stick Anthony Joshua in against an unknown quantity in Charles Martin, right? And you're going to do that based on the fact of what he did in his last fight. He struggled against a guy who wasn't in shape and had a bad injured shoulder. Is that the basis for you to take a world title fight because you don't know him? Heck, this guy could potentially end up being one of the best heavyweights in the world. According to Abel Sanchez in the interview I did with him recently, he said to me that Charles Martin is a good fighter. He's very well skilled, and he's not a great he's not a fantastic puncher, but he's got a good boxing ability and he's got a good heart. So, you know, if I were Charles Martin, I'd be licking my lips and think to myself, you know what? I just saw this guy get rocked by a guy who had his injury, who got rocked by a guy whose shoulder was injured and a guy that was out of shape. Now, if he's getting rocked by him, imagine what I can do. So I know a lot of fans are jumping on the bandwagon of, and okay, let's say Anthony Joshua beats Charles Martin. How many defenses could Anthony Joshua have before he's called out by one of the major heavyweights? I think we need to slow this whole thing down, Anthony Joshua. Now, either one or two things are going here. They're gambling if they put him in with Charles Martin, or B, they're cashing him out. They're gambling because they don't really know how good Charles Martin is. And it all depends. Is Charles Martin, is he the kind of man that can be paid off? If he can be paid off and not put much of resistance and let Joshua hit him fall over, then and we have to take these into consideration in terms of negotiation. Is he that kind of a man? Or is Charles Martin a man that is not going to be easily negotiated with, and a man that's going to come and fight, and he's going to come to keep his title? If he can be bought by money, then yeah, Joshua stands a great chance. But if he can't be bought by money, and he's a man of principle, then he'll have a fight in his hands. So even if Joshua does beat Charles Martin, again, it still doesn't answer many questions. He's a world champion, but he beat Charles Martin. And Charles Martin got the title because Tyson Fury was stripped for going to face the best heavyweight in the world, which was Klitschko. So my thoughts are this. I want to take you back to an orthodox fighter, unbeaten. His name was David Price. David Price fought Matt Skelton. And Matt Skelton was meant to get blown out in a few rounds. A domestic British fight. Matt Skelton came forward, got inside, got onto Price's chest, and made things look very uncomfortable for David Price. Price ended up stopping Skelton. But boxing fans ignored the warning signs there. The next fight, if I'm correct, was against a southpaw, around 6'5", 6'6", and a lot of people didn't know how good he was. His track record was he'd given Vladimir Klitschko a tough fight, and he was ranked number 2 in the world, I remember, or something like that. So he was ranked to one of the best heavyweights in the world. His name was Tony Thompson, and we all know how that ended, twice. Now, are we going to learn from our mistakes here? Now, I'm not saying that Charles Martin is Tony Thompson. Charles Martin has the potential to be even better than Tony Thompson. And that's the thing. Anthony Joshua needs to learn the game more. Are we looking to just develop a world champion? A title holder? Or are we actually looking to build a legacy with Anthony Joshua? That's the question. Frank Bruno's a world champion. But he wasn't talking legacy. Frank Bruno was a world champion. His first fight, he got beat by Mike Tyson. Title holder. So what is the game plan? What is the vision for Anthony Joshua? I don't think Joshua should be fighting this fight. I think the fight against Takam would be better. Takam's durable. He's got a track record in him. He's tough. He's strong. Got knocked out by Povetkin. Povetkin's no mug. So Takam would be a good fight. Yeah, so Joshua needs more time to develop. He's not ready. He's not ready for those guys at the world level. I know a lot of you guys would like to hear me say that he is. He's not ready. You just have to look at his last fight. You're only as good as your last fight. And based on Joshua's last fight, he's not ready. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave your comments. I'm out of here. Take care.